Welcome back. I'm rather incoherent here again today to discuss the current format for Arkham Horror and how I feel each class is faring. Today we're covering Mystics. As always, I'm going to be going from the weakest Mystic to the strongest Mystic, at least in my opinion, based on my theory craft so far. And of course, that means we're starting with Amina Zidane. Who else could be the worst Mystic? Amina, when she was released, essentially completed the pre-existing Doom archetype, but she is the most recent expansion. She's from Scarlet Keys that we're allowed to play with in current. So she's now completing an archetype that doesn't exist, which leaves her sort of an island in design. I've seen decks that were entirely on a theme with Amina, running like all the stuff she was printed with. I've made this deck that largely abandons the theme entirely in favor of just playing for head. And the idea here, make no mistake, the reason we're running Ceremonial Sickle and Dowsing Rod is not just because they're generically okay cards, allowing you to move and investigate at the same time, or allowing you to deal with rats without using other things. No, it's just like you can play them into empty hand slots, generating a Doom and refreshing Cat Mask. That's a huge part of why we're running them. We're running Cat Mask, we're running Living Ink, we're running Relic Hunter with Pendulum and Rosary to make these low-tier Mystic assets actually function. And you might think that, like, oh, wouldn't you be better off upgrading the Mystic assets instead of spending 10 experience on Living Ink? Yeah, maybe. Hard to say, really. I stopped really trying to optimize her too much when I was like, oh god, I am polishing a turd. I cannot justify trying too hard to fix Amina when she's one of the poster children for why current format doesn't really work without changes to the product line. Because she is the finishing touches to an archetype that otherwise doesn't exist. It just doesn't really function. Almost every Amina deck that I've ever respected ran the permanent version of Blood Pact, which you cannot access anymore. So you can do something like this, probably upgrade Living Ink less and go for your Mystic stuff earlier. Worth noting, amongst the many things Mystics have lost, I've been focusing on the Doom archetype because Amina, they've lost Arcane Research and down the rabbit hole. Your only permanent now is the Great Works. You're only up one experience a scenario, right? You aren't just going to upgrade Clairvoyance and Rite of Seeking for free anymore. You'll also notice we're only running Ward level 0. One, I'm Amina, I've only got 5 health. I genuinely feel like I need this to make my own character safe. Why use it on somebody else when it might just kill me? But 2, Warded Protection level 2 just doesn't exist anymore. It's not in the current format. You can't protect your teammates from the Mythos anymore. That is not a Mystic's job at all. Mystics in general felt like they lost a lot of the stuff making them interesting and are kind of just the Head Matters class again. Just like Rogues, they're put back in a time machine, but unlike Rogues, they went back to a point in time where they were still a functional class. Oh, I'll also mention, because this class has Axe as the Great Work, I'm using a 35 experience limit instead of a 29. But I'm not going to talk about Amina anymore. Anything I say about her is colored by the fact that I have to buy Charisma, El Rubash, and Senator before I'm allowed to improve the rest of the deck. And after spending that 13 experience, I'm still complete trash. She has an awful stat line, an awful gimmick. She supports an archetype that is incomplete. And I'm basically all in on finding specifically Cat Mask for the character to function, no matter which version of Amina I build. And this is in a world without Backpack too. I'll also remind you that you cannot run 2 copies of Cat Mask and 2 copies of Sparrow Mask because limit 1 is not the same as a slot. If you are full on slots, you can replace an item no problem. You cannot replace a card that says limit. So if you have an empty Sparrow Mask, you cannot just override it with a Cat Mask. There is no solving Amina when you are all in on Cat Mask and have 14 experience of mandatory cards that don't actually make you any more powerful, and you can't find the Cat Mask reliably. So I'm just going to move on. I was going to say, feel free to show me a deck list and argue with me and tell me why Amina is good in current, but honestly, don't waste your time. It will fall on deaf ears. You will never convince me Amina is going to function in current. This is awful to think about. I actually had far more fun thinking about every other character in the game, even crippled characters like Alessandra, than I did Amina. Anyways, moving on to Kohaku. Sad that he's only my second, but there's a lot wrong with Kohaku too. Notably, Bless and Curse, that's from Innsmouth. And yes, some of it's from Hemlock, but most of it isn't. Most of it just got banned. Now, notably, Kohaku doesn't get full Mystic access. The usual way you deal with that is you go into All of McBride, you run Spectral Razor and Read the Signs, and that makes a lot of sense. The problem there being that Read the Signs, Spectral Razor, and while it's not here at all, Uncage the Soul level 0 do not exist. The only way to run these cards is to get the upgraded version of them. Uncage the Soul level 3 also exists, it's just not in this deck. And you find yourself in a really awkward spot where you can play a flex character, but you don't have good draw and you're only flexing with Spectral Razor. You can throw Drain Essence in too, but if you're testing that at base 4, base 5 with the Rosary, it doesn't seem very good. Kohaku's still got a lot going for him unique to him. It's very hard to put Blessed tokens in the bag, So sure, any Mystic can be played alongside someone with an Ancestral token and use the Key of Solomon, but Kohaku's the only one that can just put a Bless in the bag and then use Key of Solomon and just keep doing that. So Key of Solomon for healing is still cracked, by far one of the best forms of healing left in the game. And Kohaku self-enables it just by only putting the blesses in the bag. If you have more blesses, you just use the Key of Solomon and don't worry about it. If you have more curses or nothing, then you put in a bless token. And there are very few reasons left in the game to put curses in the bag. It's mostly just Gabriel from Seekers. So yeah, I think Key of Solomon is a really strong thing for him. I think once you get the experience and you're using recursion on Read the Signs and Spectral Razor with Olive, that can be quite good. Drain Essence in the deck, like you only have 6 health, you can Drain Essence a rat or something and overkill it to heal yourself, that's nice. I really wish Uncaged 3 was in the deck, but I'm already at the experience limit from buying Key of Solomon and Charisma and all those. It's mostly just the experience crush, right? The fact that there are no level 0 variants of these cards, so like you're going to start off with 2 Azure Flames and 2 Clairvoyances and be limited on slots and playing a really boring normal Seeker with 4 in head. There's not a lot of 4-head Mystics left to refer to a group as 4-head Mystics, but Kohaku's certainly still experiencing the 4-head Mystic problem, and it's really the level 0 stuff and the lack of other forms of Bless and Curse support that make him feel very weird at level 0 and kind of niche in terms of like, play this guy if you need Key of Solomon and no one's running Ancestral Token, that's kind of it. And make no mistake, when we get to Guardians, not a lot of people are running an Ancestral Token, let me tell you. Aside from that show, most other characters don't really feel like they're going to be great users of it. Anyways, I don't really have a lot to say about Kohaku. This kind of feels like the only path for him. I don't know what else you could really build with the guy, because the Bless and Curse support that you have left to put in your own deck doesn't feel very good at all. This is where I'm at with him. Unlike Amina, I would absolutely believe you if you think you found a better way to build Kohaku than me, and I'd be all ears to see what you did. Which brings us to Mystic Agatha. Mystic Agatha has pretty much always been the inferior version of Agatha. Seeker Agatha has access to way more broken stuff to recur and is generally in the more broken class. Comparing a 4-head Seeker to a 4-head Mystic, that is night and day. 4-head and Seeker is so much easier to use, to the point that I ended up making a book-based Mystic Agatha using Milan Christopher and Magnifying Glass to just test the bag normally, and then using Olive McBride in conjunction with the assets to actually get lots of clues and trigger her ability. Mouse Mask is obviously great with this strategy, and everyone needs fodder for Crypt Chill. And then looking at what we can actually recur, it is sadly not that good. We've got Uncage the Soul. We have String of Curses, which is very, very cool because you just use it as your last action to put Doom on literally any non-elite enemy, and then you recur it to kill them. It's a very, very cool. It's essentially a level 0 version of what Mycona did that only exists in Agatha Crane, both variants though. Voice of Ra, again, just economy. Cosmic Revelation's very, very good. One of the best cards in Standard for sure. Sorry, current. It's going to take a while to start calling it current every time. And Burning the Midnight Oil is one of the big reasons I ended up going book-based. There just weren't that many spells and events that I wanted to recur. And I'm already at 31 experience. Before you point out, Read the Signs, Spectral Razor. I'm building a Clover, that's why I didn't get Spectral Razor. I couldn't really make a way to flex that made Spectral Razor feel like it was worth putting in the deck. I'd rather just call myself a Clover and be done with it. But for Read the Signs, everything else felt notably more important than me, and I'm at pretty much the experience limit. I could cut 2 cards forward at this point, but I would need to play the deck to this point to know how my economy feels. Am I really overkilling it? Because if so, we can cut Emergency Cash. I don't know. Read the Signs definitely should be in the side deck, though I'll go ahead and add it. And frankly, depending on your team, it could make total sense to get Spectral Razor. There are definitely some very weak fighters that you might be playing with in Standard, so I'll add that too, and then I'll actually put them in the side deck this time instead of what I just did. But yeah, comparing Agatha to Kohaku, they are both 4-head Mystics. Agatha has a much easier time using her book to get clues. She has access to the highest level of Mystic assets, which is a big deal, and she's able to recur something, not every turn, but most turns for meaningful value, and really get ahead of tempo in that way. I don't think she's incredible, but I do think she's stronger than Kohaku and far, far better than Amina. Moving on, I'm shocked she's 3rd best in the Mystic class. It's Gloria. Maybe I'm underranking her, but here's the thing. Alyssa Graham is gone. You're not just going to look at the deck every turn anymore. That's pretty rough, and in terms of enabling her abilities super efficiently, unless I miss something, we have Scrying, which is all right. I don't mind Scrying at all. And we have the Eye of Agatha. The newest update for the FAQ, I forgot to read this in my video about it, made it clear how this interacts with Gloria in the Mythos phase. You get to see what the card is before you assign it. So Gloria can just put Agatha and Athoa in play and then say, top card's Crypt Shield, I'll take it. I've got Crypt Shield fodder and I'm not feeling anyway. Next card's Rotting Remains. Well, there's a rogue, so we give it to the Guardian, I guess. Last card's an enemy. Here you go, rogue. You can just figure it out, right? You can just look at each of them in turn, and that's not as good as planning the whole turn, but it's like 3/4 of the way there. It's really, really strong. Obviously, this deck should have a Relic Hunter in it. Apparently, I just forgot to add it. There are going to be a couple of little mistakes like that throughout these lists. As for the Gloria support, I think it's a pretty easy choice to go into Seeker. I'm super all in on Agatha and Athoa specifically. Scrying's an all right second option. So we want to get Captivating Discovery to look for it. We want to get Cosmic Revelation to look for it. We want to get Glimpse the Unthinkable to look for it. Thorough Inquiry to look for it. You get the idea. Additionally, Cosmic Revelation and Thorough Inquiry are two of the best support cards in the entire game. Ward is basically just here because even though you are Gloria, the way that you might have to deal with the Foot Treachery sometimes is by giving it to yourself and warding it. There are a couple of super nasty cards you don't want anyone to draw, so having Ward 0 is still very, very good. And Raptured is just insane with all of the clue finding skills. And the reason I end up making a Clover Gloria as opposed to a Flex Gloria is just because generally if I'm playing a Flex Mystic, it means there's a lot of spare room in the deck and I'm not being pushed towards something. Because I'm trying so hard to find Agatha and Athoa, I don't really think there's a lot of room left in the deck to fit Flex cards, which is why this ends up going into Flex. And sure, once you're doing this, it seems pretty broken, but Agatha and Athoa is an experience card and the thick of it doesn't exist, and it's kind of like night and day whether or not you have eye or not in terms of how much scrying Gloria is really going to be doing. So between early campaign and draw order, I think over the course of a campaign, Gloria Goldberg's gonna be a lot worse at constantly mitigating the Mythos deck than she used to be in Legacy. She's still good. She's a 5-head Mystic with a crazy ability. She's pretty high in my tier list, but I think 2 other Mystics do better than her. Agnes is certainly one of them. Agnes is just stupid. She has 5-head, just like Gloria. All of our top-ranking Mystics do. At a Crossroads is the best draw left in the game. With her stat line, Lucky means you can just beat any Mythos test without committing cards to it most of the time, which is very, very silly. Live and Learn is at its best when combined with Mystic assets, and Sparrow Mask is absolutely insane in Agnes. On top of all of that, if you just stick with Clover and don't try to flex, you can run something like Eyes of the Dreamer and Spectral Shield to basically be invincible to round out your clue finding assets. Alternatively, you could cut both of these, run Spectral Razor level 2 and an Azure Flame. You can't run Tripling, there's no upgraded variant available, it's just Azure Flame at 5. And that's a little bit scarier because you don't have that much health and there's no bandages anymore, but you could easily convert this deck into a flex. Unlike a lot of the other Mystics, I just really wanted to show off Spectral Shield tech here. I could easily have made a flex deck and it would have not been any different, really. The main difference is that Spectral Razor costs you experience, so it doesn't exist at base level. So you would want to start off with like an Azure Flame and a Drain Essence, but the character would still be quite strong. You could easily play a flex Agnes, and I'll go ahead and put that in the side deck since I'm listing all these decks on my Discord anyway. But yeah, comparing Agnes to Gloria, Agnes is just rock solid in terms of consistency in a way that Gloria isn't. So comparing Agnes to Gloria, Agnes is much better proactively. She has better numbers, better support from the red card pool. She's not spending her experience on team support stuff. She's proactively stronger. Gloria is better at team support, and there are absolutely teams where Gloria will be better for your team than Agnes. I think they're directly comparable. As I say that, I looked at my tier list, they're side by side, and I just flipped them to have Agnes be on the bottom, but they are so different and still functioning within the realm of head-based Mystic that I think it's really just up to what your team wants and what kind of character you're looking to play. I don't think one is really meaningfully better. I know Gloria was super broken in Legacy, but so much of that is level 0 Alyssa Graham. Not having that does a ton to balance Gloria. Which brings us to Jacqueline, and if you're a big fan of Arkham, I think the moment you saw Gloria, you knew Jacqueline was number 1. Jacqueline's ability is completely, utterly cracked, right? This is once a turn, twice a turn once you find your signature. Just don't auto-fail and guarantee a success, basically. Previously, because of curse tokens, very rarely you would draw like auto-fail curse, and you'd be like, ah, shit, we might actually be in trouble here. But with almost all the curse stuff out of the game, Jacqueline's ability may as well just say pass a test guaranteed twice a turn. Well, once a turn, twice once you get Arbiter, which is insane. It's an absolutely broken ability. And with the power level generally going down and this being a baked in part of her character in a version of the game where everyone has less draw and is less likely to find that broken stuff, yeah, Jacqueline is nuts. And this is just a basic, normal flex Jacqueline, a little bit less fighty stuff, a little bit more cluey stuff. This is a bog standard, boring purple character. We're running Drain Essence here. If I had a higher experience limit, I'd be running level 2 Spectral Razor. It's in the side deck. You can also run this instead of Spectral Razor if you want. I always forget this exists. It is in some ways better and in many ways worse, and I don't see a reason to run both, but it does exist. So I started going off on a tangent about how Jacqueline's ability is cracked, and if Mystics will function at all, then Jacqueline will always be an incredible character. And I was going to tell an anecdote, but it's actually important to game mechanics, so let's break down a rule real quick. In case you are wondering exactly how this works, what exactly does Transfiguration do in the current format, right? Because it says your collection, and the current format doesn't redefine your collection. I would say your table just needs to decide this together. I personally think your collection should be limited to your format, obviously. But rules as written, it's very specific. It says your deck building, not your collection. So rules as written, what they've given to us, you are still allowed to transfigure into anyone you're not allowed to play right now. You can transfigure into Mateo. Now, that said, my experience has been that Jacqueline's ability is so cracked that when we played with a Jacqueline transfiguring into Mateo, it was consistently making the team worse, because we'd much rather Jacqueline just keep using her ability over and over and over again rather than only being safe to the autofill. Just guaranteeing success when you were only up 2 is actually really valuable already. The infinite autofill negation of the Mateo transfiguration strategy is really cool, but it requires you to spend experience on Transfigure, draw Arbiter Fates, play them both. Just be Jacqueline. It's probably better anyway. But yes, if you wanted to, rules as written, first draft, right now it seems like there's a loophole and you can play Transfigure and turn it into Mateo. I wouldn't recommend it, but you'll still be incredibly powerful if you do. Anyway, that'll be all for now. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one, where we'll be talking about Guardians.